It's Halloween. It's Halloween. La, 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 la. Someone started a paintball last year. Great. Perfect. Well, that should do it. Don't want to have another debacle with the local ruffians like I did last year. I made sure to get my candy on time, and I've got plenty for everybody. Yep, those snot-nosed, good-for-nothing freeloaders don't come around for a little bit longer, so why don't I do a manga review? Uzumaki by Junji Ito was serialized in Big Comic Spirits from 1998 to 1999. The version of the manga I read was a 2013 Viz Media Deluxe Edition, translated by Yuji Oniki. Since its release, the manga has garnered a cult following on the internet. Almost without a doubt, you have seen this image floating around on the internet somewhere as somebody's profile picture. So that begs the question, is this truly a must-read horror classic, or has it been overhyped? I've talked about Junji Ito before in my last Halloween special, so I'm just going to briefly summarize his life and career. Born July 31st, 1963, in Natsugawa, he grew up enamored by horror books, films, and manga, such as the works of Kazuo Umezu. It wouldn't be until the 1980s that Ito began to draw manga while he was working as a dental technician. He published his first manga titled Tomi in 1987, which was serialized until 2000. Since then, a number of his works have garnered critical acclaim, especially in the English-speaking world. One of these titles that he's most known for is the subject of today's review, Uzumaki. According to Ito, the manga came out of his wanting to create a story about a long row house in which strange happenings would occur. To make the house as long as he can, he came up with the idea of making it a spiral. Ultimately, the spiral row houses concept would be utilized in the manga, and the basic premise of the story about strange occurrences is similar to what we got. It is also important to note how spirals are viewed in Japanese culture. Spirals are usually associated with warmth, but in this manga, Ito uses them in a horrific connotation. Uzumaki takes place in the small coastal town of Karuzo-cho, where strange events related to spirals begin to occur. The manga follows a high schooler named Kirie Goshima, whose boyfriend, Suichi Sato, feels that the town is cursed somehow. Suichi's conviction is further strengthened after his father begins to exhibit an obsession with spirals. His father becomes obsessed with spirals, collecting as many spiral objects as he can and staring at them all day. This obsession culminates in Suichi's father contorting his body into the shape of a spiral within a laundry basin. Suichi's mother then becomes insane, freaking out at the sight of any spiral after the funeral, where the smoke from the crematorium forms into a spiral in the sky and works its way into Dragonfly Pond, a body of water located in the middle of the town. After the funeral, stranger and stranger things begin to occur to Kirie and other residents of the town, all seemingly related to spirals. In time, Suichi becomes convinced that the town is cursed by the spiral. So, what will happen to Kirie and Suichi as they face the curse of the spiral. And what exactly is the curse? What's its connection to Kazurocho? To find out, you're just going to have to read the manga for yourself. Starting with the art, what can I say other than it's fantastic? Ito put so much detail and time into the manga, and it's amazing. For instance, he crafts these stunning single page and double page spreads that I loved. On the flip side, there is also some truly horrific and ugly shit in this manga, such as the corpses and the body contortions that are just incredibly intense. Ito's creatures are as horrific as ever in this manga. Take, for instance, the mosquito women who look so demonic, and the people in the row houses that look gnarly. Ito's line work is also fantastic. Take this scene of the lighthouse, for instance. One of the aspects of Ito's line work that I specifically want to highlight here is that it helps convey some good motion throughout the manga. There ends up being a lot of motion represented in the manga due to the importance of wind, for instance, in the final couple of chapters. His use of motion lines does a great job at conveying that motion. Getting more into detail, the detail that Ito puts into the characters' facial expressions is great. Take characters screaming, for instance. In these moments, he exaggerates the openness of the mouth. This exaggeration in these instances makes the moments feel so much more intense. The evolution of Shuichi's face throughout the manga is another example of Ito putting some great detail into his facial features. The detail put into Shuichi's eyes makes him look like a corpse, and it's a great little detail to the manga. Speaking of eyes, there is an emphasis placed on eyes in this manga, and I love it. There are a large number of these detailed close-ups of the eyes that allows for so much emotion to be conveyed within the manga. I also enjoy the times that Ito leaves the eyes blank, which occurred several times in the manga. It looks highly unsettling and can add to the narrative. The panel layouts in the manga are solid. Ito doesn't really do too much that's unique or striking, but there were a few moments where the panel layouts did become varied, that added emotion to a scene or conveyed movement really well. Speaking of which, there are many striking moments in the manga that were such due to the art, such as the scene with the soup bowl and the Jack in the Box. The shading in these scenes is great and adds to the moment. There are also some fantastic sequences in the manga in terms of montage, such as when Kiri runs down the lighthouse steps as the sun sets. This use of montage makes for some great reading. There are also some trippy looking moments in the manga, such as the scenes in the forest. These scenes were highly enjoyable. Moving on to the story, it's honestly a bit of a mixed bag. Okay, so the manga starts out with a straightforward plot, but in the middle it gets a bit lost in the sauce, and the manga begins to feel more like an anthology series with the same characters and a loose continuity. Then, in the final few chapters, it returns to focusing on telling the main continuous story. This anthology feel of the manga causes it to come off as a bit disjointed at times. There are some truly terrifying stories in the manga, but there were also several stories that just fell flat for me and didn't feel at all that scary. The snail story and the twisted version of Pyramus and Thebes story, for instance. Some stories are scarier than others, and some are just more so unsettling or twisted. The endings for a number of the stories also felt somewhat disappointing, such as the firing effect and the mosquito. They just kind of ended and it felt somewhat jarring. Also, the overarching concept tying all of these stories together is supposed to be the curse of the spiral. But for some of the stories, it felt that the connection to the spiral was weak, as with Twisted Pair or Mosquito. Other times, Ito's use of the spiral within the story was highly creative, and how he incorporated them into the story was unique. Take Medusa, for instance, where the connection to the spiral is attraction. The manga suffers from those usual horror story issues of characters having bizarre logic and rational thinking, such as why didn't Kuri try to escape the town earlier, or why were scissors left in the mentally insane woman's hospital room? These moments, however, don't detract from the manga too much and can be overlooked. Also, the manga does have some realistic elements that you wouldn't typically see in a horror story like this, such as the outside world trying desperately to reach the town, or the survival instincts that the people have in the final few chapters. Getting more in depth with the concepts of the manga, there is some amazing stuff in here. The idea to use spirals in a horror context is incredibly interesting. I especially enjoyed how he used the concepts in the final few chapters specifically. There were some truly horrifying concepts found throughout the manga that I loved, such as the mosquito woman and their babies, as well as the actual curse of the spiral itself, because it leads to some truly disgusting shit. Also, the concepts of the manga could just be so interesting. Concepts such as the lighthouse and the storm watching people. Now, not all the concepts in the manga were interesting or scary. Some were admittedly a bit goofy and silly. Ito is great at adding little details into the stories that help make them all the more worse. And I mean that in a good way. The addition of the line of dialogue about the lighthouse staring at the kids, or how the mosquito woman used the hand drills, oh, it just gets to me. Examining the characters, they were okay. Something I wish the manga did better in terms of characters is that I wish that the relationship between Kari and Suichi was either better shown or expanded upon. Their relationship was hardly even shown in the manga. This is due in part to Shuichi disappearing for a majority of the story. I feel that if their relationship had been better expanded, then the ending would have been more impactful than it was. In the end, however, they were not annoying and I enjoyed following Kari throughout the story. As for the ending, it was left somewhat open, but I liked that. It allows us to ponder on why spirals are so important to the source of the curse within the town. Also, the source of the spiral curse was incredibly interesting, but we get nothing about its motives or why exactly it even is. I like that. It makes it all highly mysterious. One final thing I wanted to mention related to the story has to do with the bonus chapter. The manga came with an additional chapter after the manga was over called Galaxies. I thought the chapter was great, and I wish that it was included within the actual storyline of the manga, because it had some amazing experimentation with the art, as well as some more interesting concepts. Overall, the art is, of course, amazing. There's so much time and detail put into it that makes it great. I especially enjoyed Ito's line work. I also love the emphasis placed on eyes within the manga. It helps to convey the emotions of the characters better, adding to the story. There is quite a bit of great movement in the manga as well. The manga had some scary concepts as well as a few that fell flat. I also felt that the manga was a bit disjointed and the flow between the stories could have been executed better. Also, the incorporation of the spiral into the stories was poor in some, though there were a number of times that Ito was able to incorporate it interestingly. Finally, while the characters were I wish we got a bit more development out of them. All of this considered, I'm going to have to give Uzumaki by Junji Ito a 8 out of 10. And that's the video. I hope you enjoyed. And I hope you agreed with what I had to say about Junji Ito's Uzumaki. It is a fantastic manga, though it may be just a bit overhyped. I would still say, however, that it is a great read for any fan of horror. Now, if you excuse me, it seems that a mob calling themselves the Parents Concerned for Our Children's Health and Safety has just formed outside of my house with a couple of complaints. Anyway, I hope to see you on this channel again real soon. Goodbye. Oh, no, put that fire out!